Well, thank you so much, Michael. Again, I'm Jack Lowes, Whatcom County Executive, and it's great to be here today. The question that I'm going to be reporting on is what three things within their authority can local government in Whatcom County do to stimulate private investment? And we had a robust discussion that identified three main areas that we felt that we could make some improvement in so that we could fulfill the goal is to increase the private investment in Whatcom County. In short, what we have is that permitting, economic development issues, and infrastructure were the three areas of topics that we focused on. As it relates to permitting, it kind of somewhat comes back to the comment that I made this morning, but it's collaborate to yes instead of regulating to no. But it's taking a team approach as it relates to the opportunities that we have within all of the jurisdictions in Whatcom County so that we can make Whatcom County be known as a place to come and do business, a place where we know what yes is, what no is, and that we can drive the maybes out of the equation. And that's one of the comments that the mayor made this morning also. So that's the main, one of the main functions that we'd like to do in the permitting end of it. We'd like to increase the predictability of the timelines as it relates to permits, streamline the process, of course, and reduce the regulatory complexity. It's had been a challenge for all levels of governments for years, and I've had firsthand knowledge of those challenges in the last 8 months as your county executive. Our staff is, I think, making inroads in that, and I appreciate the comments that our team put together as it related to that. A couple other ones, assisting people, coming in and partnering with them in their applications, and being customer friendly. In the economic development area, the two main issues that we identified that Whatcom County and the cities can work on is to provide for an adequate land supply for development. And we're talking about net development area, excluding of wetlands and the critical areas, which are important to protect. The other ones we had was consolidate development organizations into one, and then focusing dollars and resources to identifiable industries, whether they're emerging industries or sector industries that we know that has potential for growth. Put like our EDI money and economic development money into infrastructure projects that specifically target those infrastructures to make us move forward. The third is that's going right onto the infrastructure, somewhat ties together on the economic development end of it, but to have everyone in Whatcom County review their impact fees and find out whether they're applicable and whether they're a hindrance to business development. An example we had is a small business in one of the jurisdictions wanted to expand, small business, but because it was a peak hour business, the impact fees would have been over $80,000. Well, just too big of a hurdle for that business to do what it would like to do, therefore no expansion. Things like that are things that we need to deal with if we want to stimulate private investment into Whatcom County. Being able to develop permit-ready sites, be regional stormwater systems, going through the natural resources portion of the permits and being able to establish the net usable areas early on in the process so again we don't have those struggles. We'd like to rebuild our websites. Information is key in today's environment, and the more interactive we can be with the people of Whatcom County, the better off it will be. And of course you know that the world is one click away at this particular time, and what we need to do is develop our information system so that people of the world can get to us within that one click. So I think that wraps up the gist of what our group did and the most important facts. I appreciate everybody's comments on it. They did a great job. The overall list was extensive. Like I wish that I had the time to narrow or to expand on a lot more of that, but a good group. It was a pleasure working with him, and thanks for allowing me to be today's reporter.
I think you did a pretty good job. Yeah, congratulations and thank you. Okay, bar's pretty high. Luckily, we have Marilynville up next.
Luckily. So I had to be filled in on the very beginning of our question, so I apologize since I had a meeting at noon. But having said that, we had a pretty lively discussion in our group, and our question was, should we try to drive future investments into specific market segments or take a more laissez-faire approach by setting the table for investment and getting out of the way? If we do want to drive future investment, who or what agencies should do what? Well, it sounds like at the beginning people said we do not want the laissez-faire approach, or that we wanted, actually it was a little bit of both, but by the end we were saying we didn't necessarily want the laissez-faire approach. And the reason was because of setting a goal for the kinds of jobs we wanted in our community, the kind of jobs that would be allow people to be economically independent and self-sufficient. And so we got immediately into what kinds of sectors of jobs do we think would suit Whatcom County. And so the ones that we came up with voting, and I actually think we all voted for almost all of them, but one was higher education and investments in a higher education town. Jim Darling will like this. Adventure sport capital, which fits in with our activity level, our natural environment, and others. Marine trades and technology, because of where we're located and the expertise we have in our community about that. Value-added agriculture. We doubt if we'll be investing in program crops, but the crops we have in Whatcom County are very more high value, and we're going to try to add manufacturing and other things to that so that they can maintain that. Sustainability innovation. We started out with green sector innovation and decided that sustainability was something that the city is known for, and it would be something that, if we consider the three legs of sustainability, which are financial, environmental, and economic, and we really stuck with sustainability being defined that way, that we could come to some consensus. And healthcare. We have an aging population here in Whatcom County. We have a regional healthcare facility. We have a very innovative community that likes to see how we can get access to healthcare for everybody at an affordable price. So those are some sectors we looked at. So if in fact we thought we should look at some specific sectors, then what did we need to do that? And I'm going to leave Jack with the comments about what government should do. What we thought that the education community could do was look at all levels of training, research, workforce, and potentially facilitating communication. Private sector, we believe our private sector needs to be organized. I think that came up in Jack's presentation too. So I think if the private sector were organized and creating some synergy, we would know in our community what we would need to foster something like that. And then investment from the private sector also. So organization and investment. And that also applies to our not-for-profit sector in all areas. So if I left anything out, I think I might have called adventure, the adventure community. I probably should expand that to be tourism of all kinds, because many people come to our community and bring their investment and leave. So, and I'm going to let the people in we talked about a million things, so I'm going to let the other people in my group add specifics to what we recorded here. But they did a great job, and we were diverse, and we were all laughing and smiling when it was all over. So that's a goal.
Question number 3 and group number 3 belong to Mayor Jensen from Ferndale.
So our question was, do any community or cultural assets, attitudes, habits, or trends facilitate or limit job growth? So facilitate job growth. we think we have a robust education opportunity. We have a brain trust. We have a lot of intelligent people. We're really blessed in the fact of the multitude of education opportunities in terms of learning here. We're a very rare community in the fact that we have a college, we have a tech school, we have a community college. What do we have? We had six total, was it? 6 total. I think Mr. Darling said we're the only one in the state that has all those facets, so that's an opportunity. We have a diverse recreation opportunity. We have a green perception or a green branding, and that's both a plus and a negative, and we'll touch on that just a little bit later. We have a diverse and robust arts and culture. We have available commercial real estate, industrial. We had some debate on that. Some people think that we have lots. Some people think we don't have enough. So we had a group that didn't agree at all times. We have a great geographic location, and that's something maybe sometimes we forget, is that how many great things is that we're near the border. We're in between 2 major cities. We have water, we have rail, we have a freeway. So we have a lot of great things going for us. On the limits to job growth, there's a perception of over-regulation where we have too many regulations. Not in Ferndale. They said everything was perfect in Ferndale. That's not true. We have what has been perceived as cave people in Whatcom County, citizens against virtually everything. We had some great quotes. We had a group of we thought that was funny. Not to some people, it's not funny at all. We had some great quotes. We had some people with some great quotes. Paralysis by process, where basically the process we're taking way too long to make a decision. Overreaction to opposition. The drive for idealism trumps accepting the good. Isn't that a great quote? We worked on that one. Must find a balance between jobs and a great community. Us and them. To have them is wonderful. To resent them is not. Outsiders. Perceptions we talked about here is maybe we're too green. People think that we're too green. Fear of retaliation, speaking up. That was kind of related to business people. Sometimes business people have a voice, but they're worried about speaking up to see what would happen. I'll be blunt. It was kind of basically centered around the Colson cycle situation where they spoke up, and I had a Facebook page brought against them. And then questions, internal and external brand. How do we see ourselves and how do others see us? What are our greatest assets, quality of life, business industries? And now, how do we use our assets to create jobs? And then one that they didn't put up here that's really important to me, but we always talked about is, boy, wouldn't it be nice if we could figure out a way to have civil conversations between each other at all times.
Let's see nailed it. And last up is Rob Fix from the Port of Bellingham for question number 4.
So our question was, in what ways is higher education responsive to meeting the needs of regional businesses? Are there ways it could do more? We had a variety of answers too, but a couple just kept popping up in from every table pretty much. And one of them was Bellingham Technical College. So if anyone's here from the technical college, you got huge accolades for being responsive to the community needs. It was thought that you prepare your students well for graduation for fields that have employment needs, and that you anticipate what the market will need and you prepare your programs accordingly. So the technical college got great marks there. Unfortunately, the other higher education in the area did not get such great marks. Not that they were bad marks, but it was thought there was areas of improvement for better connectivity and alignment with the community needs. That the higher education offerings need to be more forward-thinking and less responsive. That there needed to be a focus on engineering education, a focus on programs around STEM, and there needed to be more applied learning, whether that applied learning was by way of internship or work-study programs, but there needed to be more on-the-job type of education. It was thought that we had a good array of higher education, but they needed to partner better with the community. talked a bit about also K-12 emphasis. They need to do a better job of teaching critical thinking. That means reading and writing skills. And that there's too many boundaries between K-12 and colleges. Those boundaries are too rigid. There needs to be a method for these organizations to communicate better. That's about it. We came up with a couple of other, some felt the question was too narrow. It lacked focus on non-traditional education opportunities such as apprenticeships. And then an increased focus on entrepreneurial building blocks such as tech, research and development, and media. We did come up with another question, is how do we retain and grow our existing businesses? It was felt that that question wasn't answered sufficiently this morning. And that one company actually has a problem with a lot of retirees. I think you said 45,000 retirees coming up? 45%. So there needed to be more discussions on succession plans and that sort of planning. 45% of our workforce is obviously a lot. So I was pretty brief. If I missed anything in my group, please feel free to chime in.
The question for now is what specific ideas have arisen today that people want to pursue? And, so we really need to hear from you. Before we do, I was asking Ken to share how the summit will be documented. I know people have some questions about that. And what the steering committee, the chamber, the other organizers are committing to do to ensure that there are tangible outcomes and continued progress. So Ken, if you would share that with us, and then we'll see what people have on their minds.
Thank you, Michael, and thanks to all of you for all the time you put in today. It was our hope that we could come to the end of the day today, not just with what we're hoping is going to occur from this last session, which is some very specific action items that we can as a community undertake, things that we all agree on. But maybe more importantly than that, have an opportunity for a wide variety of people, many of whom have either not met or just don't get together very often, to talk about some of these issues and create some dialogue that we haven't had in the community before. And at a minimum, I hope that's been accomplished, and I think from the comments I'm getting back from you, it has been. As far as the overall reporting, what the intention of the steering committee and the chamber is that we want to take the work that we're going to do right now, and the work we've done throughout the day, and put a report out on Wednesday that is, in essence, really just reporting back exactly the work that you've done. We're not going to add our values, our thoughts to it. It's simply going to be reporting back all the work you've done so we have that document available. And we're going to put that out to the entire community. Our intention then is that on a monthly basis, and it'll generally be around the first of each month, we're going to come out with status reports. And we want over the course of the next year to be able to come back to the community and say, here's the report that came out with the things we said we were going to do. And each month we're going to give you status on where we are with these. So this does not become what a lot of people like to refer to as shelf art. It actually is going to be a working document that will help us move, I think, in some new and exciting directions here in the community. The other part of this, though, is there's also been discussions about things that maybe didn't get discussed here. And so the steering committee is going to take not only the work that we've done today through this report, but many of the comments you've already made, and I think comments that you're probably going to make here in the Slack section about things that maybe that weren't covered, things that weren't covered adequately. We're going to go back and look at that as a steering committee from each of the four major sectors. And I think we're going to look at some ways that we can come back to you and say, okay, for those of you who were engaged and work with us, what can we do as a next step? What can we do to come together and talk about these things, not in a whole day session, on a much smaller scale, but to see if we can address some of those things that weren't addressed. So those are our intentions. We'd love to hear your thoughts on that as we go through this final section. But again, thank you all so much for your time today. We appreciate it. And I'm going to turn it back over to Michael.
So, what's on your mind? More specifically, what specific ideas have arisen today that you want to pursue? Terrific.
Well, people from my group think I'm going to say film, but that's not what I'm going to say. One of the things that came out of our group that I think was brilliant is that we need to decide as a community what our vision is for jobs growth here in Whatcom County. What kind of jobs we want. We need a vision, and from that vision we can do all of the things we talked about doing today, but we have to start with that vision. But I actually think that a good source for doing that, maybe leading this effort, it might be the Council of Governments, because they work with all of the governmental entities in Whatcom County. They might be a good lead for this. By when? Gosh, I think within the next 3 years. I think we should do something over the course of that time period, bring people together from different groups that don't normally get engaged in the process, along with those that always do, and come up with a vision.
In our group number 3, one of the things that we ended up talking about indirectly because of the original format of the question ended up being given is having some sort of a branding of what that countywide identity is, which would probably follow out of the vision, but having a brand that is recognizable in conveying this so that we can start to speak with a unified voice and a unified image.
Over the course of the last few months, we've talked about ways to modify or work on the decision-making process to apply for those funds, and one of the things that would guide that would be an infrastructure plan that would help for the decision and listings of projects. So we had a comprehensive economic development strategy that was developed maybe 10 years ago. So one of the things that have been recommended is to resurrect an update to that plan, and so it's along the lines of the vision, the output of this, and some of the work that we're looking at to develop that strategy, and some decisions are being made about where that lies, but we have a precedent for putting that together.
One of the things I think that really defines this area, and probably anything, is water. And it's one thing that we can build on to a large degree, but it's also an essential item for us as we, especially natural resource managers, city, how we do land use. All these things really center around how we manage our water resources, and those are not so easy around here. For natural resource managers, flood management, drainage are big issues, but probably the biggest one is the water quantity question. Who has the water and when and how much that unanswered question depresses economic development is something I don't think many people really get their heads around. So that's something we'd encourage. It's part of the infrastructure part of what government can do. It already has been talked about ad nauseum for years, but the implementation of anything has been really slow. And certainly up in the agricultural area, we have a lot of unpermitted water uses that raise real questions about the future of ag and management in the whole county.
What appeared to me in the conversation at lunch today is that the Puget Sound Regional Council was actually led a lot by a private group as well as a public group. So they had some of the biggest private companies in all of Puget Sound driving that. What I'm hearing here is Council of Governments. So my question to this group, which has a lot of private people engaged in it, shouldn't there be some private people participating in this?
I think that we're looking at potentially a way to get private sector involvement with government involvement through one of our economic development, COG, the port. We have some options. So I think that there is an opportunity to do that is being developed just as we speak. And if people have a chance to look at that and see what they think, because I think you're right.
And where would they see that? Where would they see this?
They will see that when
The Council of Governments primarily has been the transportation organization related to federal and state road projects in Whatcom County for years. The executive board at their November meeting is going to discuss the potential expansion of COG's responsibilities into the economic development sector. So the decision hasn't been fully made. It's a decision that needs to be made. Mayor Linville, myself, Mayor Jensen, all of the small cities and the stakeholders throughout the county. But I'm on board with wanting to expand that responsibility out. There's because of the reduced funding that the tri-funders are able to push out into the economic development sector, we are heavily involved right now in trying to restructure how we're doing business. And the parts and pieces all are not in place yet so that I can give you definite answers of where they're going to go. But I believe with the participation of Bellingham and Ferndale, Blaine, Mayor Linden, all Sumas, the port, the tribes, everybody's involved there, that we'll make the right decision. And if we can do that, it will allow us the avenue to get the private sector people involved in this economic development strategy that Whatcom County and the cities need. So stay tuned. It's going to happen, but we're probably 2-3 months down the road before all the pieces are in place. Then we'll have that opportunity to start incorporating a lot of this into our future plans.
Okay, thank you.
Because there is the COGs around the country are also some of them are metropolitan planning organizations, which cover a lot of the things that we're talking about right now, more than just transportation projects. But that isn't what I was going to talk about. I wanted to say that one of the things I heard was identifying land supply, and both the county and the city are going through their comprehensive plans. I don't know if, Gary, if you're doing yours now too. So what we're going to do is cooperate up front with the county to talk about land use county-wide and not just in our city or whatever. So it would actually fit together. And I think that will be helpful. We're going to plan hire the same consultant to do the population projections, get something realistic in line, and also then look at our full comprehensive plan land use, which is an opportunity in a public process to get some of the information that potentially has come here or will come from public comments to influence some of the needs that people have in this area. So not necessarily a decision that's being made right now, but we're starting ours next year.
Appreciate the fact that throughout the day at different times people have acknowledged the fact that Western is a great asset to the community. One of the things that I'd like to suggest is that Western is also a great resource for the community, and when we talk about the need to access information, to have people do studies or whatever the case might be, one of the things that we have is intellectual power, and we are more than happy to engage with in any way we can in using the intellectual horsepower that we have to help us go in a direction and to determine that direction. And so I just encourage you to consider that, whether it be on this issue or any other issue. We value that opportunity and look to be a partner in that way. So as we leave here and try to figure out next steps, we want to be involved.
The question comes up, Jay brought it up and a couple other folks, about what role the private sector plays. And I guess, Ken, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. Is that a role that Chamber could play, representing the private sector, at least coalescing them together and organizing them?
Yeah, thanks, Jim. I certainly think so. You know, one of the things that in the 9 years I've had the pleasure of serving this role, I've found is that, you know, the organization I think did a very good job of trying to be sort of the face of the community when it came to Ski to Sea and some of the events and activities that we did. But unlike almost every other chamber that we work with across the country, there were some areas in exactly this role that we didn't really fulfill, and I think we really would like to step up and do that. And so as we're looking, whether it is through COG or through other organizations, at ways that we can get the private sector not only involved in some of these things, but coalesced around the idea of working on some of the industry sectors that we have and trying to find improvements there, absolutely, we'd like to step up to that role. And I think we have to some extent in some areas, but hopefully the results of this is that we'll be seen as sort of the go-to place to do that at, absolutely. But pick up the phone and call. Let's chat about some of these things. Or if you've met some other folks that you've got some issues or concerns, let's see if we can't use this dialogue as a way of breaking down some of those barriers.